The house lights are up, the ringing in your ears is just starting to set in, and the show is over. But the night isn't. Welcome to the after party. I'm your host, The Stranger, and you've just stepped into the home of the strange. This is the show where we break down the concerts, the crowds, the gear, and everything that happens when live music takes over the room, as well as everything that happens after the concert is done and the feelings that are left with us. Tonight, we're unpacking a massive one, the Bad Omens Do You Feel Love Tour. More specifically, the stop here in Toronto on March 6, 2026 at the Scotiabank Arena. But before we get into the breakdown of President, Beartooth, and Bad Omens, let's do a bit of housekeeping for listeners of this first episode of the After Party. My goal with this channel is to share my love for live music with a community of like-minded people and bring the experience I had to life through this podcast and video recordings of the concert. For the Do You Feel Love tour, I have all three sets from all three bands recorded in full, uncut, and uploaded on the Home of the Strange YouTube channel, so you can see and hear the moments that I'll be referencing during this episode. Of course, I won't always be able to get these full recordings. I might not have the best spot to record, or I might just be so into the performance and be singing so loud that the recordings would just be unusable. So even then, I will try to record an episode of the after party to share the experience to the best of my abilities. I think that should cover it. And now we can actually get started. And let me get this just out of the way. First, we need to talk about something that happened the week leading up to the concert. It's the story of the absolute headache that it is to try to do a nice thing for people on the internet. So here's the story. I ended up with 2 extra tickets to the show, a sold out, highly anticipated show, which I personally think is one of the most important concerts of the entire year in the metal community, given that it's one of the youngest bands in our scene who's playing one of the biggest venues in this city, pretty much one of the biggest venues in the entire country. The people who were coming along with me initially could no longer go, so I needed to figure something out. I had tried to do a giveaway in the past, and that didn't work out for different reasons. That's definitely a story for another time. So I thought that this would be a great opportunity to give it another shot. I figured that I could give them away to another fan who really wanted to go, and I do this giveaway maybe through the band subreddit. Simple, right? Very wrong. I've sold tickets in the past through various platforms, and it's never been that hard, so who knew that selling tickets was easier than giving them away for free? Oh well. The title of my Reddit post read, Toronto. Big capital letters, exclamation mark. I have 2 extra tickets to the show on Friday. Tell me why you need them. And the caption said something cheeky like, just buy me a drink and we'll call it even. Just trying to have fun with it. And you know, a lot of really kind people DM me, being very generous by sharing their stories. And there were some really great candidates to tag along. But there were also some not so kind people who automatically assumed that I was trying to scam them. This is a small but very loud minority, but it still sucks. This was a shame because it made the entire process more complicated than it needed to be, and ultimately I decided that it was not going to work out, so a fan missed out on coming. For one reason or another, the people who I was considering giving the tickets to could not make it anymore, and I wasn't fully comfortable taking others. At the end of the day, my wife and I were also going to be attending this show, so we needed to vet who was going to sit beside us. And these tickets are under my name, so if anything were to happen, it would be my ass on the line. This is the point where the story takes a turn. Just when I was starting to lose all hope, I received a message from the well-known content creator, METALBIRB. I've known about him for a while, but I'm mostly familiar with his podcast, The Metal Roundup, which I've been listening to for the past year or so. Before I try to give the tickets away on Reddit, I actually offered them to Burb just because I knew we lived in the same general area and I thought it would be a fun thing to do. I messaged him saying something like, I have 2 extra tickets to the Bad Omens concert if you'd like to tag along. If you're already going, I'd love to say hi and thank you for the cool recommendations, and just left it at that. He didn't respond, so I went ahead and tried to do the Reddit giveaway. Once that fell through, I messaged him again saying, hey, I've been trying to give these tickets away with no luck. Let me know if you're interested in going, or actually, can you just give me a suggestions on how I could give them away, since I figured that he's done something like this in the past and he might know another method. If you want to hear his side of the story, be sure to check out the episode of the Metal Roundup where he talks about it. I'll link it in the description below. But essentially, he was skeptical at first, but he was able to do a background check on me and decided he would accept to come. He showed up right on time before the first set, and I gotta say, it was a fucking blast to share this experience with him. We got to talk, of course, about everything to do with metal, the current state of the genre, our favorite bands, and all that cool stuff. But we also got to connect a little bit more about, camera gear, digital marketing, social media, things that we're both passionate about outside of the metal music industry. But lastly, we just got to enjoy the gig without any drama. It was just a group of people that really enjoy this type of music, who are tapped into what's going on in the genre, and who have a kind of invested interest in the future of it, since we've been following it for so long. We want to see a healthy, growing metal community. We want to see where it's going, and this concert was going to show us that to some extent, because we're at a sold out 15,000 cap arena full of metal fans ready to see 3 fairly new bands, or at least new to this size venues. This is the tour that will give us the clearest view of the future of heavy music, and I'm so glad we got to experience it firsthand. It's absolutely crazy. So huge shout out to METALBIRB for saving those 2 tickets and not letting them go to waste. I know he's doing some really cool things this year at Download Festival, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And hopefully I can continue to learn a few things about the way that him and the other guys from the podcast approach this type of work. All right, that's enough of the chit chatter. Let's get into the actual music. I'm gonna do this in order of the lineup. Opening the night was President. Metal music's newest anonymous mask sensation. The identity of the person behind the mask is sort of an open secret, but it's safe to say that they are very experienced. They've had a successful career at this point with multiple projects under their belt, and that completely shows in their performance. To be the opener of a tour of this scale is a heavy burden, but they did not flinch at all. They did exactly what an opener needs to do. They grabbed the room by the throat and they got the blood pumping. The entire band had great stage presence and each member played their instrument flawlessly. And the crowd seemed to be fully engaged. Go watch the recording and you'll see what I mean. I have been to this venue many times and never ever have I seen at 7 p.m. the general admission or the seating area be this full for an artist of any genre, I think. Especially for any heavy music genre. And of course some people were there to line up to see Bad Omens and are standing to hold their place in the crowd, but not necessarily, because you can see at the end of the video a sizable number of people were walking out to the atrium right after the set of President because they were there to see this band. I think, just like myself, people were curious to see what this band was all about, what they had to offer. And I'm sure they won over a lot of new fans. For me personally, I was skeptical about this at first. You'll see that skepticism is a bit of a theme of this. It seemed like it was just another band that was going to be pushed down our throats. And, the industry plant claims, by definition, are correct. That is what this band is, but I don't think that's necessarily wrong. There are so many other artists who've had previous careers, like previous bands, and they decided to have a second go at it with a new one. Some of them had had masked identities, and some of them have made some amazing music in this second career. So I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Pretending that it's not a factor in the success might be what's actually wrong, but regardless. As long as the music is good and it's resonating with people, that's all that matters. So when it comes to President, I think they succeed at this. The songs are really connecting with the audience, and you can see it in the crowd. Yes, I was skeptical at first. The first song came out and it didn't really do it for me. But then the EP, King of Terrors, came out entirely, and the song Destroy Me absolutely destroyed me. I connected fully with the lyrics, and the music was something that was interesting to me. And from there, I started to enjoy some of the other songs a little bit more. And even going back to the very first single, In the Name of the Father, I ended up liking it more than I initially did. And now that I've seen them live, I like it even more. I was completely just blown out of the water with how good they were, how tight the performance was, and especially how good the vocals of President are. Of course, he's a very experienced artist known for his great vocals, and some people might be familiar with his music, but he's wearing a mask, so not everyone knows that. And for me, this is the very first time that I've seen him live. So all the songs just translated so well live and even sounded better than they did in the EP. And that is just a big highlight of the vocals in the live performance versus the studio version. What brings the vocals into the spotlight in the live performance is the fact that they are not using the same vocal processing that you hear in the studio versions. The biggest standout for me was the song Rage. In the EP, the song ends with this vocal passage that's freaking layered with vocal processing that just doesn't do it for me. It sounds too robotic, and it almost added to the claims that this band is manufactured. The vocals are even muffled by the guitars at certain points intentionally, but in the live version, they do give them the opportunity to shine. They're freaking beautiful. Without the vocal processing, it sounds like President is a siren that is serenading us and putting us in a trance. I just love that change because now it is bringing the humanity back into the song and putting the human at the front of the performance, which is exactly what I want to see live. Those vocals of that song were just amazing. So if there is one song that you should go watch how it sounds live versus the studio, it will be this. Definitely makes the live version better than the studio. I'm not going to give the performance like a score. I'm just going to tell you how I feel about it. And for President, they met my expectations, but they did not exceed them. You can hear me say that at the end of the video. Exactly what I thought President was going to be is what it was. And I don't think that if you dislike the songs, this is going to make you like them now. But if you already like them, this is going to confirm your taste. If you're curious, I think the performance is so good that if you're just curious and it's a maybe for you, you might be swayed into the positive side now. The removal of the vocal processing is a really good move, but then there were a lot of backing tracks in some part of the songs, especially on some of the screams to create an echo that would extend them. Most times I'd rather just hear the shorter scream than the extended one with all these effects. This kind of stuff just takes me out of the organic feeling of a live performance. But it all balances out with me, so I think it was great. It's a very solid performance, and I actually would be interested to see them as a headliner to experience what their own show might look like. Alright, so that is President. We'll move on to the next set, the direct support. Beartooth. This is a band that I've actually seen before, back in 2017, at a venue called the Coca-Cola Coliseum. It's a smaller hockey arena with a capacity of around 8,000 people max for concerts. And they were opening for Bring Me the Horizon. The lineup, I believe, was Beartooth, then Under Oath, and finally Bring Me. So Beartooth, I'll be honest with you, I didn't have any strong opinions either in favor or against it. It was a solid performance as I remember. I enjoyed it, but let's just say I did not go home and listen to any more Beartooth. Then you fast forward to 2023 and their latest album, The Surface, comes out and it became one of my favorite albums of that year. I really liked Beartooth's take on positive metalcore. Really welcome lyrics in a genre where we don't really hear it much, and I think that's just for obvious reasons. You know, the vocalists are screaming, so it kind of makes sense for them to be screaming about something that makes them angry or sad. But I love that album, front to back, so I was really excited to see them live again. And let me tell you, if you haven't seen Beartooth live, or you haven't seen this iteration 2026 version of Beartooth, it is an absolute assault on the nerves in the best way possible. Their energy is just relentless from beginning to end. Everyone in the band is just firing on all cylinders. Of course, Caleb Shoma as the frontman brings a lot of that energy. His character on stage is so energetic and so confident, like he's literally not even wearing a shirt, and it brings so much contrast compared to the previous act, President, who is covered from head to toe wearing a mask and gloves. It's a welcome difference between the two acts. Even though the music can sound very similar, at least the image and the way that the frontman is being presented is quite different. But those similarities in the music go as far as the way they perform and the effects that are used. The main criticism that I have with Beartooth's performance is the same one I had for President, which is the backup tracks. I'll give you an example with the performance of the new song Free. You can go back again to the full performance on my channel to hear what I'm talking about. The studio version of the song, I believe, is a showcase of Caleb's vocal ability, and that is what captured my attention first and foremost. The lyrics of the chorus are nothing to write home about, because he's just repeating the words "I'm free," but the way that he's going up and down the different octaves and delivering it so flawlessly is amazing. Now, when I go see them perform the song live, that is what I'm expecting to hear. Him showing off how great of a singer he is, but there were parts of the song, especially the last part of the chorus, the last time that the "I'm free" is repeated is just a backing track. He sounds great otherwise, but when you hear that backing track take over, it kind of feels like I'm being shortchanged. It really is not that big of a deal. I understand that a lot of bands do this and why they will want to do it to be able to translate some songs into a live environment. I still think the performance was solid, but a bit underwhelming. Generally, when I listen to music, I picture the musicians up on stage performing those songs. And that's what I'm looking forward to when I go to the shows. So these kind of things stand out, but they're not a deal breaker when the actual live vocals are really good. At one point for the song The Lines, Caleb told the entire crowd to shut the fuck up so he could have his moment when the band goes quiet and he can just belt it out, which I'll admit, it did pay off because again, his vocals are actually top notch. But I don't know if I've ever seen that before, so it was worth it, but I'm still not sure if he should have said that. I know it can rub some people the wrong way. I'll make a special mention of all the songs they played from The Surface. The standout for me was Sunshine, which was performed with as much ferocity as you hear in the studio, and the stage production enhanced that feeling with these bright yellow visuals being played on the screens behind the band. So, to close on Beartooth, yeah, it was a solid performance, but it didn't fully match the excitement that I felt going into it. Alright, with both openers out of the way, we can finally talk about the headliner, Bad Omens. The hype surrounding this band is astronomical right now, and it has been for the past few years. To see them selling out arenas of this size is nothing short of incredible. So, as I've been saying throughout this episode, I think this is one of the most important metal shows of the entire year. And that is why I felt that I needed to experience this to really see what the current state of the metal industry and the metal community is at this level. A little bit of backstory for this one as well. I did see Bad Omens back in 2016 at a 1300 cap venue called The Phoenix. They were the first of 6 bands playing on Sumerian Records' 10 Years in the Black tour, celebrating the anniversary of one of metal's greatest labels. The lineup was Asking Alexandria as the headliner. It was the first tour with Danny back since the first time he left. Born of Osiris, Icy Stars, After the Burial, Upon a Burning Body, and at the bottom of the bill, Bad Omens. And I'll be completely honest here, I didn't think that Bad Omens was any good back then. All the musicians on stage were very professional and performed their songs to the best of their abilities. But the songs are exactly what's wrong with this initial version of the band. The songs were just straight up rip-offs of Bring Me the Horizon's Sempiternal. And not even in a satisfying way. They were not using the formula to create songs that are, expanding on the palette that Sempiternal laid out. Not in that way. Just straight up rip-offs of parts of Sempiternal songs with none of the soul, the aggression, the hookiness that album has. So I just wrote them off as a Bring Me the Horizon copycat and didn't hear anything from them until 2022 when The Death of Peace of Mind came around. I think they came on my radar just from hearing the conversations that were being had online about the new singles. At first, I couldn't believe that they were talking about the same band that I saw about 6 years ago at that point. But sure enough, it was the same band. I must have heard snippets of the title track or maybe Like a Villain since it was such a viral sensation, but I didn't listen to any full songs until that summer, once the entire album had been out for a while. I was skeptical as usual, especially since I already had an opinion of this band, so I waited until I was going on a long drive to listen to the album uninterrupted. And I was blown away. I was blown away with how different the band sounded, of course, and how good the blend of genres was working. The hybrid theory was being put to work, and it was working flawlessly. So I was pleasantly surprised to hear what the band was doing, reinventing themselves and creating an original sound of their own, while still wearing some of their influences on their sleeves. Every time I hear something that I haven't heard before, I'll give that praise, and this piques my interest. The next step for me, naturally, is to experience their live show, to see and hear how these songs translate. I tried to go see them live the following year at a venue called Rebel that has a capacity of less than 4,000 people, but I could not get tickets. It was impossible. Fast forward to 2025, and they announced the Do You Feel Love tour due to make stops in some of the biggest arenas in North America. And with the support from a lineup that I'm really interested to see. 2 bands that I've seen before, Bad Omens and Beartooth, but now I'm going into it as a fan of some of their latest music, and one that is arguably the trendiest band in the scene right now, President. But I could not fully believe that the band I had seen 10 years ago, being the first of 6 at a 1300 cap venue and not leaving a positive impression, was now selling out arenas. So again, I was skeptical going into it. I should call myself the skeptic instead of the stranger. Maybe I will. So I was skeptical, thinking that they might not be able to fill those shoes. I was curious. I was intrigued to see if they were going to look like a small band that couldn't fit in such a big stage. Were they going to rise to the occasion, or were they going to fall short? And I, the stranger, am here to confirm that they did rise to the occasion and completely backed up the hype that was surrounding them. The atmosphere that they created in the concert was entirely their own. From the moment the set started, with the fog covering the entire stage, Noah Sebastian stepping in the middle of the spotlight shining on him, singing the intro lines of Spectre. Then the entire band comes in shortly after with those ferocious riffs and driving drums. And they just take a complete hold of the crowd's attention. I was hooked and along the ride from that moment on. The way they seamlessly flow from soft and pretty sections to these aggressive, relentless, haunting, heavy passages in some of their songs, it's a metalcore masterclass at the highest level. It is truly a sight and a sound to behold. The visual production that goes along with these performances makes the band feel massive. You can go to the full set recordings that I have in the channel to see what I'm referencing, but the band essentially has these huge screens right behind them that creates a great backdrop to every song they're performing. But they also have these massive screens that are stacked above the stage like a sort of pyramid, and there are two more screens on either side of the stage that are used more for close-ups of the members of the band. All of these comes across very, very cohesively and make the band feel huge and really fill the entire stage. The live show is perfectly synced with the music that is being performed, creating a mood around the entire arena that you could feel the crowd gravitating towards. And it sounded like everyone was singing every single word. I tried to sing as many as I know, but I know at least the people behind me, they knew every word because they were screaming them to at the top of their lungs, like banshees, which, that's another conversation. Like, I want everyone to enjoy the show to the max and have the night of their lives. But as soon as you start bothering other people around you, that's when you've gone too far, but not gonna get into that. Of course, this is one of the metal industry's mascots right now. So they're putting so much money into the production and the marketing to be able to pull off this type of event. But if it doesn't come together, it wouldn't make a difference. The fact that it does come together is what I love the most about what I experienced. I'll give you an example. One of the highlights for me from their set was the song Concrete Jungle, which is one of my favorite songs of theirs. When they were performing it, there was a backdrop of this city skyline during the night, setting a very moody but cool vibe. When the breakdown happens and Noah screams, "I'm the fucking king," the pyro comes out right behind them, and the scene that was in the screens changes to the same city but engulfed in flames, creating an apocalyptic vibe right on beat. Again, the visuals are doing a lot of the work, but the music is really what is driving everything to come together as it does. Another highlight that Burb actually mentioned in his podcast, The Metal Roundup, was the song In Pose. Similar to President's performance of Rage, Bad Omens chose to translate this electronic heavy song into a more rock and metal performance live. And that was an amazing decision. I think it enhanced the song, and now that I listen to the studio version, I try to picture the live one instead. So cool to see the magic of live music and how it can make you feel different about a song that you already had an opinion on. One last thing that I like to mention about Bad Omens is that it looked like they were having fun. There was a moment in the show when Noah addressed the crowd and said something like, "We're still getting used to the echo that you hear in these big rooms, but we're really enjoying it." And I think that is one of the greatest things that we can hear from a band at this stage in their career. We should want them to be enjoying the process, and now that they made it to this huge stage, they're still enjoying what they're doing. It's a good sign of a healthy band that has a healthy relationship with the work they do, and I truly look forward to seeing and hearing what they do next. To conclude with all three bands, it's clear that Bad Omens exceeded my expectations. What an amazing show. President met my expectations, and Beartooth was a bit underwhelming but solid. I'll just make one quick mention about the crowd in general. I thought they were really engaged, and as I said before, lots of screaming fans. But you know, the demographics were not who I thought it would be based on the online chatter. You think it'd be mostly younger women, but in reality, there was a good mix of people of all genders, and most people around me seemed to be millennials. I was not in the pit, so that might have been different there, but I still think it's a mix, a good mix all around. But, you know, don't just take my word for it. As I've been saying throughout the episode, the whole point of the Home of the Strange is to bring the live show directly to you. So I was in the crowd, rolling the cameras, and I have uploaded the full uncut live recordings of all three sets, President, Beartooth, and Bad Omens, right here on the channel. If you want to see exactly what I've been talking about, go see the live recordings playlist and experience it for yourself. All the links are also down below in the description, and all the recordings are timestamps for each song so you can jump around to your favorite tracks. Share this with your friends, of course, like, subscribe, leave a comment with your feedback. That's really appreciated, especially starting up. I don't know how this is going to go, so let me know what you think of this first episode. Well, that really does bring us to a wrap on the Do You Feel Love tour, but the after party is just getting started. I'm already looking at the calendar for the next few weeks, and I have some heavy hitters coming through. Without giving everything away, I'm planning to bring the cameras to capture some incredible shows this year. Think the likes of Bring Me the Horizon, Unprocessed, Spirit Box and Evanescence, Bill Murray. Okay, I think I've said too much, but if there is a tour coming through North America, most tours tend to make a stop here in Toronto, and you want to see that fully recorded and reviewed in the channel, drop a comment below and let me know. That is it for tonight's after party. Again, huge thanks to METALBIRB for tagging along, and massive respect to the bands and crew behind the scenes for putting an unforgettable concert. If you dug this, hit subscribe, go watch those live sets, like this video, and leave a comment with your thoughts. I'm The Stranger. Stay strange. I'll see you at the next show.